Nice sweet girl. Let's pick up our basket. All right, we ready to go out? There's Mr. Draco. All right. All right, come on, guys. Let's go look at the garden. Oh, sweetness, what happened to your wing? Oh, you poor baby. Hey guys, good morning. It is time again for another garden tour. Today I'm out here with this adorable little basket that my dad made for me. For those of y'all who don't know, my dad has a channel called the Red Truck Woodshop, and so he made a red truck basket for me, which I absolutely love. And we've got my logo here, my dad's logo on the back. Very cute. So we are going to be harvesting tomatoes in this today. It's especially good for tomatoes because it is wide and shallow. Tomatoes you really want to have just in a single layer because they can bruise if you start stacking them on top of each other, especially if they're heavy. You don't have to worry about that so much with cherry tomatoes. But hello, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rachel, and this is my garden. I've been here for a couple of years. This started out as just grass lawn, and I've been cultivating and growing the soil for, I think, this is my third year here now. So 3 years here in this spot that used to be just Bermuda grass, crabgrass, and clay, among other various objects that were here from when this was an old mill house. And every week I come in here to show you guys what's going on in the garden and talk about the good things, also the bad things, tell you about my thoughts on how I'm storing, harvesting the produce that is coming in, and how I'm solving the problems that come up. The first thing we're going to do is come over to this tomato row at the edge of the garden. At the front of the row I still have my lemongrass and ginger, and then tomatillos right here at the front, as well as a boatload of weeds that I would really like to not be here, but currently are not like the highest thing on the list to solve. Oh wow, I just noticed this. This is the first marigold of this type that I've seen actually in the garden. A lot of my marigolds when I first planted them got eaten down to sticks, and I do remember planting a few different types, but this is the first one I've seen of this type actually flowering and surviving, so that's pretty cool. I've also got this basil that is going to flower that I really need to cut back, hopefully today. I bet I can get enough basil out of the garden to do a batch of pesto, so that'll be really nice, and I have all the stuff for that. With pesto, I usually make really large batches and then freeze it in those big cubes, like not the regular ice cube tray size, but like the bigger block size. I have silicone trays for that, and I freeze it and then put it in bags in the freezer for eating all year round, and that works out pretty darn well. So moving up to these tomatoes here, I've got black beauties, and I don't see any of the black beauties actually blushing. The way you would tell is the bottom sides are green until they start turning kind of pink, and that's when you know that these are ready. I did find a tomatillo that is ready. I usually wait until the papers are yellow to harvest, and a lot of times the plant will tell you when they're ready because they will just fall off the plant when they're ready. But I try to get them right before that because a lot of times once they fall they are eaten, and it's not the best that this one's paper has been kind of pulled back. I like to leave the paper on for storage in the fridge because I think it helps them stay better longer. Here's an example of one of those black beauties that is blushing and ready to pick. This one looks like it's almost evenly ripe. You can see the top is still a little bit green in the crevices, but it has started to split because we get random rainstorms almost every afternoon in the summer here in South Carolina. So better to pick this before the splitting gets really bad and let that continue ripening indoors. some of my little tomatoes have these bread tags on them. These are the ones that I protected the blossoms from the time that they were opening. And then once I took the protection off, I had to mark which ones I had protected. And I think bread tags are especially good for this, for tomatoes specifically, because the stems get pretty big pretty fast, and these are not going to disintegrate in the rain, and you can use them year after year. Plus they're free if you buy any sort of bread products. Here is another tomato ready to pull here. Oop. I've got quite a few of these, which I said last week, I don't really know what they are. These were supposed to be pink fang, and these are very obviously not pink fang tomatoes. So I don't know what they are, but all the plants that I had labeled pink fang are making tomatoes like this. And I definitely didn't buy any seed packets that are supposed to make tomatoes like this, so I think that they were mislabeled before shipping, which is fine. They're still a tomato. I just don't know what kind they are. I'll use them with everything else. I usually make a lot of sauce and salsas, so I mean it'll be fine. They'll get used. It's just a little strange, you know. These ones starting to split. Oof, yeah, that one's not gonna last much longer out here. Let's see. Pull this one. That one doesn't have any splits. These ones are still a little green on top. These are Cherokee purples. I'm gonna go ahead and pull these because anytime after a tomato starts putting on color, it will ripen indoors, and sometimes even the ones that look mostly green, if they have stopped growing, if you wait long enough and put them next to ripening tomatoes, they often will also ripen indoors. And it is a trade-off between like that absolute peak flavor of tomato and having tomatoes that haven't split or been eaten. And I tend to err on the side of protecting the tomatoes rather than the flavor, because I don't eat raw tomatoes. I actually only like cooked tomatoes. So I usually don't bother too much with extracting all the optimal richness from the tomatoes, because a lot of that flavor gets brought out in the process of cooking anyway. These longer ones here, these are San Marzonos, the famous Italian sauce tomato. So these are definitely gonna go towards sauce. Oh, that is not ideal. I might be able to cut around those spots though. I'm gonna go ahead and bring all these ones with spots in. There's the spots. And pull some more of these mystery tomatoes. This plant right here, I think I'm going to actually pull all the way out, even though it has some green tomatoes on it, because the whole thing looks so sad. I don't know if this is an infection of some sort or just bad genetics, but I definitely don't want this around my other tomatoes just in case. My dill is actually doing really well, starting to flower at the top here. I actually thought that this wasn't going to make it. It really struggled when I transplanted it, but it has come back, so that's great. If I ever get cucumbers, I will have plenty of dill to make cucumbers with. Right here at the base of this dill though, we have some Amish paste tomatoes. These ones, also in the name, they are a paste or sauce type tomato. That's mostly what I use them for. Like I said, I mostly cook my tomatoes and make sauces and salsas, which is why I don't really grow cherry tomatoes either. Oh wow, look at this big one. This is also an Amish paste tomato that fused. That's cat facing on the bottom there. A bunch of blossoms fused together to make this mega tomato. Sometimes that's also called fasciation. These bottom leaves here, these spots and stuff, this is really normal for tomatoes, at least in this area. It is a fungal infection, and that's why I do spend time pruning the lower leaves off of most of my tomatoes, because it's usually something that's just living in the soil all the time, and when it rains that splashes up onto the lower leaves and infects them like this. So I really need to come through and prune a lot of this off, probably pretty aggressively. And also I do need to come through and start pulling suckers again. This one actually isn't so bad, but some of these plants are putting on some pretty intense suckers, and if I let them keep doing that, they will crowd out this trellis before I know it, and then all that disease that you see at the bottom is going to transfer up a lot more quickly, and without the airflow between the leaves, it will infect them pretty badly. I just pulled this tomato off the end plant here, which is entirely rotten somehow. Sometimes that happens, and I don't know why. The rest of the ones near it still look fine, so it's probably not something to do with the plant, but probably something to do with a bug getting in there and making a wound that was big enough to allow rot to get in there. Oh my goodness, look at the colors on this one. Oh, that is so beautiful. They call this one Black Beauty for a reason. That's a pretty good looking basket of tomatoes, if I do say so myself. Oh, look at how cute they look poking through the little grate. Kata says, "You're near the ground? Why don't you pet me instead?" Draco's just over there being cute. Alright, let's move on to the second row here. This is my mostly eggplant row right now, although at the front I've got these lettuces that have gone to seed. They've finally got mature seeds. You can see a little puff. This, if you pull it out, let's see if I can do this one-handed. Yeah, there are these little black seeds in there that each little puff is attached to, the way that a dandelion would be. And that is how you save the seeds from lettuce. You just let it do this and wait for the little puffs. And then all these little seeds, you can just save them, keep them in a little baggie. I like to test to germinate them after I've saved them, just to make sure that I'm not wasting time and space on all the rest of these. But yeah. At the front are also a few more tomatillo plants and some flowers. Cosmos have started blooming really prettily, and I've got quite a few different colors of zinnia coming up in here. I really like interplanting zinnias with things like peppers and eggplant because they don't take up a huge footprint. They get pretty tall, so they can compete with themselves for that sun space. And it's also just really nice to have all these flowers kind of interplanted, using up that in-between space that might not otherwise get used. So past all of that, this is the eggplant section. I don't remember if you guys have seen, since I pulled all the radishes out of here, these radishes had gone to seed, and I really wanted to save the seeds, but I did plant these eggplants in between where they were. You can actually see these eggplant plants don't look terrible. They look pretty healthy. But you can see a huge difference between how these look and how these look. These ones were a little crowded, and these ones were not from the beginning. And so having stuff planted too close together doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get good plants, but it will affect like the size and the rate of growth of your plants. So that's something to keep in mind. Oof. This one's stuck. We've got, I think this is Chinese string eggplant coming in here. I swear I looked yesterday and I didn't see anything at all on these plants, but I'm just now noticing. Oh, that's a big one in there. Could probably pull that one actually, but I'm curious to see how big it will get, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it. So back past the eggplants, this section did have potatoes in it, and I recently came in and put down a fresh layer of compost under the straw. It is not fully broken down compost, it's only like about half broken down. And I put corn seeds in some of this, and then a couple of squashes back here on this end. I also still have these onions that are gonna live here until they start growing again next season and make me lovely seeds so that I can perpetuate the genetics that made me such giant, beautiful onions. So from across the way, I was looking at my tomatoes and I saw these that I missed on the underside of one of the plants, and this is the pink fang. It looks like San Marzano, but it's a little longer, and you can see it's more pinkish than red. This plant actually is like the silliest looking plant I have. It hasn't gotten very tall. It's been kind of struggling, looking a little, I don't know what word to use for it, but it's just slightly more mangled than other tomato plants that I've seen. You can see here at the top, kind of like, you know, it's not really growing upwards in a straight way. It's growing a lot of things out of a lot of places where it really shouldn't be. But before these turned, I thought these were going to be San Marzonos. Ooh, this one also might be Pink Fang. So maybe only some of those seeds are mislabeled. These ones over here are San Marzonos. You can see similar-ish shape, but definitely distinct shape here. So still very unclear what those smaller round ones are. But it doesn't matter because they're tomatoes and they will be tasty either way. All right, row 3 here. This sunflower from row 4 is really kind of taken over the front here. It says, I want to be the star of the show. Look at me, look at me. I've been pulling some of these flowers inside to have beauty indoors and out. They last a fair bit of time inside, but they drop pollen everywhere. So that's something to consider when you're pulling sunflowers inside. On this trellis here, I'm finally getting some growth from this side. These are the noodle beans, and you can see they've grown like about 2 feet this week with this vine finally coming up here, as well as the single cucumber that I have down here, which has grown at least 6 inches this week and is starting to put on flowers here near the bottom. So all of that is pretty exciting. Now the other side is, we've still got this one plant here. I replanted, so I do have a start there and a start here. Kept trying to get cucumbers to come up here, and it's really been a struggle. This singular holy basil plant here has been doing really well. I come and cut for tea pretty often, and you can see all these spots where I cut and then it's split, which is why it's such a beautiful bushy plant as opposed to kind of a stringy upright one. You can do that with any basil. You can cut and have it split from those nodes right above the highest set of leaves after you cut. It makes for a really sturdy and productive plant. This second trellis is still looking kind of barren, although I do have these butterfly pea plants that are hopefully going to continue growing. They're pretty slow about it, but hopefully I will have some of that by the end of the summer. I also have a sprout here. There's another sprout over there. I don't know if that is the cucumber or the butterfly pea, because the butterfly pea first leaves look a lot like cucumber leaves, but once it puts on true leaves, we'll be able to tell. And then this section back here past the trellises is where all the hot peppers are. I especially want to show you guys these ones that looked really, really sad. I planted these late. They were absolutely neglected in solo cups on my porch steps, getting rained on, getting dried out. This was absolutely yellow when I put it in the ground. Oh, it's trying to make peppers already. I'm going to pull those off because it's still kind of tiny. But it's greened up. Look at all that fresh growth coming in. It is happy and starting to explode. So I really love that. The resiliency of these plants is amazing. I also noticed I'm getting my first hot pepper here. This is a Buena Mulata. It will ripen to orange. It is perfect Clemson colors. I also want to point out to you just how different pepper leaves can be. So this is more of a common shaped pepper leaf. This is from the Capsicum annum family. So you can see this more triangular, like long leaf. Whereas this one, I forget if this is Capsicum baccatum or Capsicum frutens, but this is a much fatter leaf, and the plant overall is much squatter and shorter, whereas this one is like a little taller and spindlier. Most of the peppers that you grow are going to be Capsicum annum. This is like your bell pepper types and a lot of your hot pepper types. But when you are doing hot peppers, you do get into some of the other varieties, like Tabasco, for example, is a Capsicum fructens. and that one, it sticks up, right? So there is also, I think, habaneros are a capsicum baccatum. I would have to double check that. But those peppers, they do hang down, but they have more of that like wavy texture to them. And I just think that like that's really interesting to note, and the different ways that these very related plants grow. The last of my potatoes are right here next to the peppers. This is where I had potatoes last year, and I must have forgotten to pull some of them out. So we've got, what, 1, 2, 3 little potato plants here. I'm just going to let them be because they're not in the way. And I really like watching how these volunteers shape up. This back corner of the 4th row here, I came in and did some serious weeding here. This section really got out of hand. I pulled out the Brussels sprout that had gone to seed, and all of these poppies that are left are making their little seed pods. And besides that, they don't look super healthy, do they? I also have some sweet potato back here. Its job was to get big and kind of help fend off these weeds, but the weeds were a little fast for it, so I had to help it out. We've got another sweet potato back here. Mostly growing them for ground cover. If I get a few sweet potatoes, that's great, but I don't need a ton of them. And then in the front here, where it's easier to access, I have some more sweet peppers that are putting on cute little fruits. Right here we have another example of a plant that I put in much later that was dying, and I had the space to give it a second chance. This size compared to this size, again, this plant might live and produce for me, but the timing of when it was put in, how well it was taken care of, really make a difference in what sort of production you're going to get over the course of a whole year. This front section of row 4, I do still have a couple of kales here. Lettuce is going to seed, but I did plant some more corn here. This is a different variety. The first one I showed you was popping corn, like regular popcorn, and this is strawberry popcorn, and I had originally planned on planting them offset from each other in the season, so there was no chance of cross-pollination. But I waited way too long to plant, and I needed to get it in if it had a chance of being done by frost. So other corn is all the way over here, and so distance between here is probably like 20 feet or so. Good chance there won't really be a ton of cross-pollination, but we'll see. Oh, and just for comparison, this is what I mean by neglected plant that I gave a second chance. All of these have been sitting in these trays on these steps since I started moving them out to harden off for the spring, and they've gotten no care whatsoever. It rains on them, I don't water them. If it gets dry, they're looking pretty sad, right? Like, they're not going to get much bigger because they've started using up all the nutrients that are in these cups, and they're losing a lot of leaves because of the droughts, but they're still alive, and I bet if I planted these, they might put on a couple of fruits by the end of the season. We'll see if I change my mind about that. This one is already trying to fruit. A lot of plants, when they know that they're not going to make it, they will fruit even when they don't have that much energy, because it's more important to them to make seeds than to get big. This one actually doesn't look that bad. This one would do pretty well if I put it out. But yeah, that is your comparison of what those plants looked like when I put them in the ground. I need to show you guys this sad blueberry. This is one of the 2 that I got from the botanical gardens, and I am super worried that this blueberry over here that I got on the clearance rack had like an actual disease that transferred to this blueberry. It might be getting to this one as well. You can see the starts of some of those spots. I don't know for sure that that's what this is, but I am scared that that's what that is. Originally I thought that blueberry plant was just not very well taken care of, had dried out a bit, dropped a lot of leaves, but it might have actually had a disease on it, which is really super sad. And if that's true, then it's a good thing that these are still in pots away from the blueberries over in the berry patch over there. I might have to get some more again next year and try again, but I'm kind of keeping this away from the diseased plant. we'll see how it does. I don't really know how that's going to turn out. If I do end up feeling like it is diseased, I will throw everything out and get new plants next year and try again. I think it's really important to continue trying even when things don't go your way. My volunteer whatever squash, definitely this starting point where it started growing from has been completely decimated by the squash bugs. I don't have a lot of energy to continue coming through and picking them off and picking off the eggs, and so it's only going to get worse. I could always change my mind and try, but the motivation is getting kind of low the more damage I see, because getting all of them is just, it's so impossible. We do have these fruits down here on a vine that is still alive, so there's still a chance that these ripen up to something storable. Still don't know exactly what they're going to be. They do look like pumpkins to me, which would make sense because I mostly do grow pumpkins and buy pumpkins, so that's like the likely type of seed that would have gotten dropped here. But you never know if like a bird like dropped a seed from somewhere completely different. It is nice that the squash bugs seem to only want the squash though. All the rest of this stuff, absolutely untouched. The fig tree looking really great. The cilantro, took some of these out and started collecting the seeds, but there's a few more that needed a little bit more time. Lavender here, curry plant there, sage, parsley, oregano, thyme. This coriander is probably about ready to pull the seeds from. You see how they've turned brown and look a little crispy. And then the Mexican tarragon back there, still doing great. This second raised bed, I continue pulling leaves off of this kale instead of cutting the whole thing out, which is really silly because the leaves aren't really edible. I'm just keeping it from shading out everything else that's here. Like the chamomile that has started flowering pretty regularly now. The parsley, the chives, these nasturtiums have not yet died, even though they look like they want to. I did plant more nasturtium seeds in here. We'll see if they actually come up. And this lettuce, it did go directly to seed, kind of like I thought it would. It grew back from this stem where I cut it back, and I just let it be because there's nothing else here that it can compete with, just to watch it grow. It is beautiful. This section of sidewalk I have recently cleared off. When I moved in, there was a huge problem with grass and weeds on the sidewalk, and I've been like working on the problem. You can see it still wants to come back in the cracks. And actually, even if I owned the house, I would not own this sidewalk. Like from here over is the city's job to take care of. I'm not even sure that clearing this was the right call, like with the craters and stuff. What do y'all think? Do you think it should be like dirt and grass, or should keep it clear and have like this pit here? I don't know. I can't repair the sidewalk. I'm a renter, and plus that's not my sidewalk anyway. But the berry patch here is doing really great. In this little section here of sidewalk, actually, this is another crater that I just decided to let the strawberries have, and that has filled in pretty nicely. I think that is the right call there. But everything here is just so productive. I can come out here every single day and get berries. Here's a little strawberry here. Strawberries have been kind of small this second round, but they're still making strawberries. Look, there's baby strawberries right there. These are not ever bearing. They're supposed to be June bearing. Very confusing. Maybe they were mislabeled. Can y'all see all the buzzing that's happening around here? These really large flying things are not bees. Some of them might be, but most of them are these like large beetles. I think they might be either June bugs or fig beetles. I'm not really sure, but they come every year, and they especially love blackberries. When I was picking blackberries at like an actual blackberry farm, every time you would reach in, the whole cloud of these bugs would get mad and kind of fly at you. I do also have Japanese beetles. That's these smaller ones. Can you see it on that blackberry? He flew away. But those ones, you can tell they have the little white spots near their butts. And these other ones are much bigger. They're still iridescent looking. I'll try and find one and get it on camera being still for you guys. But I don't know if they're really that big of a problem. My plants have been really productive. Oh wait, I just saw one. Okay, right in here. This greenish looking beetle, you see him? That is those larger ones that I'm talking about. This is such a thriving ecosystem back here though. I've got ants and bees and wasps and those beetles, plus all the birds that come in here, hopefully picking off the bugs and not the berries. I have so many berries it would be really hard to tell if the birds were eating them anyways. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this. This is no pest management whatsoever. It just was given compost and mulch at the beginning of me planting everything here, and the rest of it I've let the plants do themselves. Oh my goodness, look at all these beautiful, perfect raspberries. Oh, I'm gonna have to come in with a basket and get all of these. This is the second flush of raspberries this year. I had a first flush early spring, and you can see all these little baby ones coming on right now. Look at all of those. And supposedly these are supposed to give another harvest in the fall. I feel like it was supposed to be 2 total, but we'll hold out for 3. That might be kind of fun. Oh, these bees are so cute. I'm still struggling to tell the difference between which ones are native. Definitely the honeybees are not native, but everything else probably is. There's like native ground bees and there's carpenter bees and all different sorts running around over here. Look at the cats sitting in the catnip and playing on the edge of the garden bench that my dad built. Again, my dad builds really cool things. If you're into building stuff, especially out of wood, check out his channel. It's always linked in the description of my videos. Alright guys, that is all I have for you. I'm going to take all of these tomatoes inside, maybe do a batch of salsa today. We'll see what I have time for. Thank you guys so much for watching, and before I go, I want to let you know that if you like my channel and want to support me, I do have a Patreon page. You can watch these same videos except with no ads for any level of donation whatsoever. $1, $20, doesn't matter. Everybody gets to watch these videos ad-free. Also, if you do want to donate more, you can earn really cool things like stickers, and you can also join my Discord community where you can actually send me the pictures of your garden, ask me questions, or just show things off or chat with other people who are really, really interested in gardening, which I think is really fun and valuable. So that link is below in the description if you want to check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, happy gardening.